So let's talk about event tech stack and why so many teams are rethinking it right now. After years of adding tools to solve those isolated problems, a lot of planners are now dealing with too many tools, adding to the rising costs and fragmented data. This session looks to shift towards consolidations, fewer systems, more integration, clear reporting, and a strong measurement. Please welcome Jonathan Karazian, CEO and founder of Accelevents. Hey,
Hey,
Jonathan.
hey everyone, I'm John Kazarian. I'm coming off the back of Confex. I've been face to face for 2 days, so my voice is not doing too hot. I'm going to do my best to get through this today, though, and looking forward to chatting with everybody. Um, so we're going to be talking about the rebundling of event tech, and unfortunately, here my screen share icon is not available. Lisa, you able to help me out with that?
Yeah, sure. So it's on the left side of your screen. There's screen share right there. There you go.
Perfect. Good to go.
Yeah.
All right. So there's been an interesting trend that's transpired in event tech for a little bit now. If we go back to 2020 and we look at what happened with event technology, even before that, there were new point solutions coming into existence. Event organizers were adopting those, working to integrate those different solutions together. When COVID happened, we saw a massive spike in the supply of different event technology. I think at one point there was an estimate of something like 350 different event technology solutions out there. Many of those being point solutions, it is necessary to differentiate between point solutions and platforms. We've seen a massive decrease in the number of those point solutions that remain today, right? The reality is there just wasn't enough demand to make that make sense. And the peak of it was probably around sometime in 2022, is I think where a lot of folks realized that there just wasn't the demand that they thought there was going to be for every one of those different event tech solutions that popped up. There was a lot of people out there who entered the market because there was so much VC money flooding in, as we all saw. I think we're actually somewhere below where this intersection is on the screen here. The reality is we're probably closer to that bottom apex where we've also seen such consolidation in event suppliers, even at the platform level. We'll talk about that in a little bit more as well. But the thing that is most interesting to me right now is what we could see happen with vibe coding. So if you're not familiar with the concept of vibe coding, it's the idea of being able to use, and some of this runs off of what Anka was talking about, the same way that Anka prompted AI to build her slide deck, you can do the same thing and build software. And that makes it very easy for new entrants to come into the market, even more so than it did a couple of years ago. But it's also important to differentiate between building a platform or a product or a feature versus actually building a company. And what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, I heard it today and yesterday on site at Confex, there just isn't demand for those individual features. People don't have the capacity to integrate them into the rest of their tech stack. They don't want to. They want to purchase from a company. They don't want to just purchase a feature or a product. They want to feel fully supported. They want all of the different components and pieces to talk to each other seamlessly throughout the entire experience. And that really gets into the concept of bundling and unbundling. But as we talk about that, I do want you to think about one other concept, and that's the emergence of the event engineer. So the event engineer, this is the person who is responsible within an organization for building all of the tech and the systems that make everything measurable, repeatable, and scalable throughout an event experience. It's from everything from designing workflows to making sure that data talks to the CRM and the rest of the marketing automation stack. It's all of the different matching logic to make sure data is going into those different systems properly and you're not getting duplicate contacts. It's ensuring that the technology is there to streamline processes and ultimately, again, playing off of what Anka said, ultimately make life easier for the event organizer, right? Everything you can do to automate speaker and exhibitor management, task management for those different parties. All of that has become this responsibility under event engineer. And historically, event professionals have had to wear so many, this isn't going anywhere, but event professionals have had to wear so many different hats, right? We're going to start to see a greater emergence of event engineers, event technologists who are responsible for managing these elements. But the reality is it doesn't make sense for them to try to connect a dozen different platforms together and try to get all of that talking. I mean, I'll share some stats on this in a moment, but we already see this today where it's hard enough to get marketing ops involved post-sale when they're onboarding event technology and getting a technology integrated into the rest of the stack. It's even harder to get all of those different pieces connected. There's a bunch of other reasons why it just doesn't make sense for organizations. I want to briefly touch, though, on this concept of bundling and unbundling. It's not a new concept. This quote's from the CEO of Netscape, so that's like the 90s. But it's a recognition of the fact that throughout time, there's always been bundlings and unbundlings. The innovative vendors that are bringing new ideas and concepts to market, they're building features. And inevitably, those features end up getting integrated into the existing platforms. It's happening again, right? We've seen it happen in event tech before. It's happening again right now. But we see it across all these other industries. I mean, one of the ones that we probably all experience on a regular basis is, you used to have one vendor for food delivery, you'd have another vendor for Uber or taxis, all of that under one platform now. You saw the music industry where you were at one point buying bundled songs together via CDs, and then it went to individual songs. You had 99 cents for a song on Apple Music, or maybe pirated on Napster, and then back to the streaming model, which is again a bundling of a subscription. It's just one scenario after another where we see this, and event tech has been experiencing this rebundling over the past couple of years. Going back and digging into the unbundling a little bit further that we saw, well, again, starting in 2020, a lot of this was just driven by an oversupply, and a lot of people had great ideas and great concepts, and companies had a lot of headcount, they had a lot of capacity to try to bring these solutions together. In 2022, particularly in tech, we saw this consolidation. There was a lot of rifts throughout companies. The headcount that wasn't there to facilitate trying to integrate these different pieces together. But there was also a realization that it didn't always make the best experience. And sometimes the trade-off really is this individual feature worth the overlap amongst my tech stack? So let's talk about what's really driving that rebundling. In my opinion, the biggest element is shareholder experience. At the end of the day, event organizers don't want their stakeholders to be logging into 6 different platforms. You shouldn't have one platform for exhibitor management, a different for lead capture, something else for abstract submissions, another for your mobile app on site, something else that you're registered with. It destroys the attendee experience. And then you have siloed data. When you have a platform that is bringing all of that into one single space, an attendee, an administrator, each of those individual stakeholders is only interacting with one experience. And ultimately that does create a much better outcome for attendees and all those different people, because they're not having to remember multiple passwords. They're not having to figure out how to do things multiple times across different platforms. They're not having to figure out where to look, because one element of maybe my meetings is here and my lead capture is in a different spot. It's about bringing all of that together to create that seamless experience. And part of that is because of this realization that event technology is such a critical piece of attendee experience. And I really think that when virtual events became our venue, that's when we started to really feel that event technology was as big or maybe bigger piece of the experience as something like lighting or decor or anything else that, is part of our budget when it comes to our event technology. But then there's some of the more obvious things, right? We talked about the budget cuts. We talked about the complexity that goes into trying to integrate these different solutions together. And sometimes people approach it from the perspective of, well, I can buy these different point solutions and it's going to be cheaper if I try to do it, if I do it myself and try to connect them together. The reality is it never ends up working that way, right? You end up spending way more of your time or your IT team's time or your marketing ops team trying to connect those different solutions together. And ultimately you get a worse outcome. And obviously from my perspective, it could sound like I'm biased here because I'm coming from one of the platform companies, but ask yourself how much time you spent wrangling software versus actually doing what is you're best at and focusing on all those other elements of attendee experience. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's the role of the event engineer. Event technology plays a large role in that of an event marketer, event manager, but it's not always the most valuable thing that you can be spending time on, and everything has trade-offs. So evaluate where can we streamline our experience and ultimately allow us to focus on the next most valuable thing that we can be doing. So this is an interesting stat from the Forrester Wave report. And I was actually just chatting with Conrad about this at the event I was at a few minutes ago. This is from the most recent Wave report. 28% of large organizations, enterprise organizations, still have 6 or more event technology platforms. To be fair, it's not really platforms. A lot of that are features as well. The interesting stat here is that they're still not integrated. Even the core platform, only 1 in 5 actually have that fully integrated with the rest of their tech stack. That's a problem. And part of that problem was driven by the distraction in the marketing ops team and getting pulled in so many different directions, trying to just integrate the stack in order to even facilitate the event. And it's taking them away from being able to run, to be able to use the data in a way that's effective. If organizations can focus on consolidating around a single platform, they can focus on making that data more actionable within the organization and getting the allocation from the resources they need internally to make that happen. Now, I think it's also worth noting that when it comes to the purchase process around event tech, and we could chat about that, and we'll chat about that here. So when it comes to the actual purchase process around event tech, my suggestion is don't try to build your own stack by gluing a whole bunch of pieces together. That said, there is no platform out there that is better at everything than any of these niche individual solutions are. There's a lot of incredible, innovative solutions out there focused on one very specific element of the event experience. But you shouldn't be forced to bolt those together. If you can find a platform that meets your immediate needs, then you can introduce those other components on your own timeline. And that allows you, again, to stay focused on getting the initial platform integrated with your stack, making sure that the attendee experience is where it needs to be, and then, again, evolving that over time, where you uncover that there's just some niche solution that you need a better vendor for or a different vendor for. So what do you have to look for in the platform when you're thinking about that core platform? First are the APIs available and well documented? That's going to make it easier for you to integrate with any of those other solutions you have. This point is, I would say, even more true today with the AI solutions. There's been a lot of talk around vibe coding and how AI is going to impact SaaS on the whole. But I think what we're starting to see is that the labs, the AI labs, are going to sit on top of existing technology. What you need to make sure of is that your event technology is available to the AI models for doing things like analysis, for helping you to connect your different tool stack together. So it's critical that you have well-documented APIs and webhooks. It's also critical that the knowledge base is comprehensive and up to date. That also is critical for the models to help you in connecting those different tools together. The other thing that I look for, whether it's buying event tech or any other piece of software, is that it's a crafted, not cobbled tool. There's a lot of technology in every industry that's grown heavily through acquisition. And when that happens, you end up with an experience that doesn't feel seamless. And it almost feels, for you as the user or the attendee or the speaker or the exhibitor, it almost feels as if it was just a third-party integration anyway. So when you're looking for technology, look for tools that were built intentionally with the same underlying data model amongst all of those different pieces. It makes it a lot easier to work with the APIs when you are integrating third-party solutions. It also makes it a lot easier to do data analysis. But the biggest factor is that it's what allows for that seamless attendee experience. There's some platforms out there, again, this is in every industry, where they're truly different solutions. Maybe they're reskinned a little bit so they look similar, just the styling of the pages, and they just have some SSO layer where they can authenticate into one and access all the tools. But again, you're relearning each of those different pieces. And this is another problem that happens with siloed event technology, where you have one person who's responsible for one piece of a feature. You as an organization become dependent on that person because nobody else can jump in and learn or use that piece of software as quickly because they haven't been exposed to it. So you could be 2 days before your event and that person's sick, they lose their voice, whatever it might be. You become unable to jump in as quickly as you could if that was just a feature within your existing tech stack where you already know how the tools work together, you understand the data model. It allows everybody to sort of be a backup for each other. And the other thing I would look for when you're evaluating event tech is just pace of innovation. This is probably the easiest thing to see. Every event tech vendor out there has some sort of updates page or product updates page or blog post where you can see how quickly they're releasing new functionality and new features. It's a great way to just get a pulse on, is their roadmap aligned with your event and your company's growth? Are they going to be growing alongside you and innovating with you? How much do they take feedback from customers in determining their roadmap versus how much of it is entirely in-house? Or are they at a point now where they just kind of seem stale? Maybe they're spending all their time integrating acquisitions versus focusing on their own innovation. You'll be able to see that because of the frequency at which they're releasing new products and new features. But it's also great questions to ask of the sales rep or sales engineer during the buying process. Or if you can, try to get a product manager on the phone in your buying process and ask them to walk you through, what does your roadmap look on the next 6, 12 months? How much of your roadmap is driven from customers? What's the process if we need an integration built? Or are you open to doing basically a statement of work, contract work, if we need something else built? I do want to just jump back to one slide. So this is something that I found really interesting. It's the percentage of deals that we've closed where marketing ops has been involved in the sales process. And that went from around 59% in 2022 to almost 90% last year. So marketing ops is becoming much more involved in the buying process, which is great to see. Now, again, we're coming at this primarily from the platform perspective. So registration is really at the core of the buying process for a lot of, well, if you're buying at the platform level. But again, it's great to see that consideration is taking place. And I think that's going to even pan out further. I'm very bullish on events, particularly with the realm of AI content that's out there today. The only trusted channel, as everybody already talked about today, is events. And I think there's going to be a bigger emphasis on events from the CMO, CEO, CFO, and hopefully that means we get a better allocation for marketing ops, because we all know that sometimes you are just waiting on marketing ops. All right, just in terms of who the major players are out there right now, there's really 5 core platforms that are truly all in one. They can do everything from registration and event websites, badge printing, mobile app, content management, venue map, all of those different components under one roof. My suggestion is to start with one of those 5, because again, that allows you to start there and then bolt on the pieces that you need. Ideally, you want to be on your own clock to add any sort of additional point solutions that make sense for your program. You shouldn't be in a position where you're forced to in order to just get launched. That's where deadlines get missed. That's where registration gets delayed. It's a very avoidable situation that really should be the focus of your initial buying process. For the sake of time, I'm not going to skip over this, but the slide's available if anyone wants a deck. Just reach out, let me know. But general idea is that there's different layers to thinking about, or levels of thinking about the registration solutions at the core of your purchase process. And again, if anybody can reach out to me on LinkedIn or email, and I'd be happy to go through that with you. Just in closing, I just want to reiterate again, it's, as you think about your event tech buying process, start by thinking about the platform. Think about a platform that's going to allow you to really cover the gamut of what you need to accomplish over the next 12 months. And you can think about where the pieces are that you want to add on to that, but don't put yourself in a position where you need to get 3 or 4 tools connected together in order to even get launched. Again, that's where we see deadlines get missed. It's a very avoidable buying process. So with that, again, I want to thank everybody. And if anybody wants to talk further, we can connect. I'm all over LinkedIn, so we can start there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.